Welcome, Hoosier Nation and everybody, to a brand new edition of the Hoosier Life. It's been so long. It's been almost, I feel like it's been about a month, but Josh and I we've been busy. Josh looked like he had a great escape out west, hitting pretty much every place there is to hit out there. So Josh, where did you go and how was it? It looked like you hit a couple ballparks on your way too.
Oh yeah, it was a fantastic week. Hit up Chicago and Wrigley Field, Mariners Cubs. Really fun series. Didn't really go the Mariners way on Sunday, but I was there Friday, Saturday. Head out to Wyoming, to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. If you haven't been out to Wyoming, could not recommend it more. Fantastic. Up to Yellowstone, and went down to San Diego for a little family event. And it actually went to Petco Park too. So fun week, and we're headed back to Bloomington on Monday.
Yeah, busy way to end the summer right before we head back home. It should be good once we get down there, and obviously we're gonna change the show a little bit when that time comes, which I think at this rate is going to be the next show. So we're gonna figure out how to change it up for you guys a little bit, but it's gonna be changes for the better, and it's gonna be very connected to IU. So we're very excited to get that going next week. But for now, we're gonna do our final summer edition of the Hoosier Life, and what's better to talk about right now than what's going on at the Olympics? I feel like this is the best the United States has performed in as far as I can remember, and I've only been around to remember no more than four Olympic games well enough to recollect how well we've been doing and how exciting it's been. Probably three or four, but this is right up there with Beijing so far, if not surpassing it. Josh, am I wrong?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is fantastic Olympics. They have the most gold medals by 5 right now. Just got knocked out of another Olympic event where we could have gotten gold with the women's soccer team bowing out a little early. But credit to Sweden, they played a great match. But no, this has been a great week so far. The swimming has been incredible. I mean, Lily King, IU, Cody Miller, former IU, or he's an alumnus of IU, and there's just I think a couple days ago IU had more medals than the country of Germany. They would rank 15th, I believe, right now of all countries in terms of medals. So, City of Bloomington doing a very good job right now, and the U.S. is doing fantastic right now as well in the pool and in a bunch of other events. It's been fun to see some new sports going on. Archery, golf has started, and it's really cool just to tune in all day and watch the Olympics.
Absolutely. And IU, yes, IU is having an incredible summer, not just with the Cuban Center at Assembly Hall, not with all the hype going into the football and basketball season, but with the Olympics. Lily King, if it weren't for Michael Phelps, Lily King right now would have the image of the Olympics for the United States of America with her little finger wag before she went on and did that little semi-race. That was unbelievable. I got goosebumps. I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. To see a 19-year-old kid, Josh, that's us right there. She is literally us. She's a 19-year-old at Indiana. She is us. And to see her go on worldwide television, display that confidence, and not only talk the talk, but walk the walk as well. Go out, beat her straight up. It was on the whole thing was unbelievable. And the following night, we had the Chadwick Lowe, Michael Phelps silent feud, I guess, if you will. Michael said he wasn't paying attention, but he's not going to fool us. We all know he was paying attention. There's just so many storylines to watch, from just staying in America and then you go overseas elsewhere. There's just stuff to watch all the time, and the swimming has been better than anyone expected. It's just been, I'm at a loss for words how exciting it's been, and we're barely halfway done. It's absolutely incredible. The track has started today. We are in for another fantastic week and a half. I cannot wait.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I mean, we still got basketball we haven't even mentioned yet, and they had a tough game against Australia. I think they play today against Serbia, or today or tomorrow. I can't remember off the top of my head. Against Serbia, but the U.S. basketball has been great. It is today, thank you. I believe that's actually at 3 Pacific, so a couple hours after this show is over. Tune in. But the basketball has been great. Carmelo Anthony picked up the slack the other day. I think they scored their first 15 points off threes. Carmelo had 31 points. He's now the all-time leading scorer in Olympic history for the United States of America. He has to be in the conversation for greatest Olympian or basketball Olympian for the United States, up there with Michael Jordan. It's his 4th Olympics, and he's really getting the job done right now, and hopefully they can continue moving forward. But it's fun to watch them, and there's just so many other storylines out there. And it's been a great Olympics to watch so far. Cannot argue with it one bit. And we were talking about before how we were like, oh, these Olympics are going to suck because the water's polluted and there's so many things and controversies going on. But once the games start, you don't focus about all that. You just worry about the games being played, and that's what the Olympics are about, and that's what it should be about.
Absolutely, that's 100% correct. It wasn't just us; it was everybody that was on. This could spiral out of control, and it's not over yet. We're not even close to being over. But so far is great. I can't even say so far so good because it's beyond good. The entertainment factor, there haven't been any of these crazy stories of these athletes getting very ill or whatnot. So we're very lucky with that. And it's been great so far. But going back to basketball, I hate to go all X's and O's, but Josh, I just want to fire this question at you. With the struggle that the United States had against Australia, and then they've showed some signs of going cold and signs of weakness in previous games. Nothing too big up until the other day against Australia, but they only have 2 centers on the roster, and Boogie Cousins and DeAndre Jordan are not blowing anybody out of the water. They're not exceeding expectations by any means. Why doesn't Coach K just go small and just run the floor? If you go small, keep in mind, you still have a 7-foot Kevin Durant and a Draymond Green. Draymond Green can very easily play the 4, to say the least. And Kevin Durant could succeed at the 5. And then you throw in any 3 guys you want. Kyrie, Jimmy Butler, Paul George. I could go on forever. Why do you think he's waiting? If this were me, I would just go small. I go small against Serbia, see how that plays out. But am I wrong there? Am I crazy?
No, definitely not at all. And I think we saw it there at the end of the game against Australia when the U.S. kind of started to play. DeAndre Jordan and DeMarcus Cousins were both on the bench, and they kind of did go small. I think Doug Collins mentioned on the broadcast, it was their version of the Warriors' death lineup with many Warriors on the court at the same time. I mean, it's a different game, this Olympic game, because you can knock the ball off the rim once it hits it. So if you have a guy that can just kind of stand out of the basket, once it hits the rim, just get it out, you can run the floor pretty easily. And going small could be a benefit for the United States. So it's different. It's kind of a different dynamic than the NBA game, but at the same time, it's still basketball. And if they can run up and down the floor, I don't think Serbia will be able to keep up with them. And moving forward, I don't know too many other teams that will be able to keep up with the United States. I do worry about facing Australia again because they played very well, but at the same time, I don't think they'll shoot 68% in the first half again and play as well if they play. That's probably playing up to their potential right there. But the USA just did not have a great game. They still won by 10 points and scored 98 points. So going small could be a very good thing. Completely change the entire script this early.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. If the United States goes small, they immediately have the 5 quickest players on the court, no matter who they are. If they go small, they've got the 5 most versatile and quickest players on the court. They can blow any team they want out of the water in a quarter. If they're tied going into the second, go small. They'll have a double-digit lead by the 5-minute mark, and then they can just go from there. If you want to throw Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and DeAndre Jordan on the floor at the same time, you're going to be inclined to slow down the game naturally, because when you have big men in the game, you want to slow it down. They can't keep up going back and forth all the time. So they're going to slow it down, and they don't need to. Like, there really isn't. No disrespect to Boogie or DeAndre. They're special talents. They're top players in the world. They're on the Olympic team. We can't fault them there. But at the same time, they're not needed a lot of the time on this team. That's just the reality of it. They're valuable to their NBA teams, but right now in the Olympics, they're not that valuable. The United States can go small and blow everyone out of the water. So maybe they're toying around with it right now. I don't know. I can't get inside Coach K's head. I'd love to, because then I'd be completely gifted, but I can't do that. But I would really like to see them just try and go small for an extended period of time.
Yeah, no, it would definitely be interesting to see kind of what happens with that. They did make a change in the starting lineup. I believe Paul George started instead of Klay Thompson the other day, so he's kind of mixing and matching a little bit, but we'll see kind of moving forward if he decides to go small a lot or if they decide to keep up with these big guys. But I mean, I haven't scouted the Serbian team all that much, but I don't know what their size looks like. So kind of have to play the matchup to a certain extent. But if you get in a close game, it's getting into the third quarter, maybe even as early as late second quarter, and you just want to get a nice cushion, going small is not a bad idea whatsoever. And we saw it as they pulled away against Australia. So it's definitely an option that's there, but I'm not sure if they necessarily need to go there this quickly.
Yeah, I agree with you. And here we are right now, this soon into the games. We're not even towards the semifinals yet, and we're breaking down how the United States can sneak out a win against Serbia, who, no disrespect to Serbia, they're currently 6th in the world, but at the same time, I mean, should we really be worried about them right now? It seems almost unfathomable that we're a little concerned about this game against Serbia. And again, they were cold shooting the other night. That was the main reason they couldn't blow Australia out. They still won by double digits. They scored a lot of points. Serbia will not be able to keep up with 98, but we'll see. They could adjust like that. They're the best players in the world, all 12 of them. Not a question. Let's move on. We cannot not talk about Michael Phelps for any longer. I think the discussion right now of the greatest athlete ever has to be had. I think there's no way at this point in time, excluding the Bo Jackson, and if you want to talk athlete like that, throw Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders out of the equation. The most successful, best athlete of any Olympic Games is without question Michael Phelps. If that was even in question going into Rio.
Yeah, I mean, he just broke a 2,000-year record. 2,000 years. They were doing the Olympic Games naked back then. I mean, that is how long this record has been. I mean, 22 gold medals is unfathomable, and I just can't even wrap my brain around that. Is 22 championships. When is the last time anybody has won 22 championships? I mean, he has just been the gold, no pun intended, the gold standard for the Olympics. I mean, it's incredible. I'll get into this in my uninterrupted. I kind of have a little contradiction to this, but it's seriously incredible, and there's really nothing to describe it. It's just pure greatness.
I saw that too. I think last night I saw it on Twitter or something. I thought about it for a second. I said, this has got to be the most incredible stat in the history of the world. Sports, non-sports, entertainment, nature, whatever you want to have. It's the most incredible stat. I have to read this again just to emphasize it. Michael Phelps has the most individual gold medals in Olympic history. That should speak for itself. He has 13 of them. 13 of them. That's unbelievable. Breaking the record of Leonidas of Rhodes. So just off the name, he's old. Leonidas of Rhodes, who competed from 162 to 154 BC. Before the Common Era is when this guy competed. That record is 2,168 years old. I'm not going to analyze it. I'm going to pass the torch, no pun intended, right back to you. I just have to read that and just let that sink in to anyone that is listening. It is ridiculous.
No, and I mean, you see it in the pool too. I mean, I like last night against Ryan Lochte, we were all thinking Lochte's going to be number 2, Phelps is going to be number 1. Lochte wasn't even close, and Lochte yesterday said if there wasn't a Michael Phelps, it would be me. So, I mean, you just cannot even get on his level. His I guess, for lack of a better term, worst stroke is the breaststroke, and that's last night when he pulled away in that 200 IM. He pulled away from the entire field in that leg, and then the freestyle, it was over. Not even close. Don't even come at me. And then a half hour later, he has to compete in a semifinal, and he's 31 years old. He has to do a 100-meter butterfly, and that's his best stroke, his butterfly, arguably. And he gets into the final of that, and he has a chance to get 23 gold medals tonight. And really put an exclamation point on us. And I'd like to say that he'd go out on top, but you just never know, because he said he was retiring after the 2012 Olympics, and now here he is again winning gold medal after gold medal. It's just truly remarkable what this guy is doing, and at this age. It's just incredible.
He is in Beijing form right now, and that's 8 years after Beijing. So, I mean, you can look at that and say that if this trajectory continues, he could still certainly compete in Tokyo in 2020 if he wants to. However, going from 23 to 31 is a far different animal than going from 31 to 35. Now, I know to all 35-year-olds out there, you're still incredibly young. Don't take this like I'm saying that you're old. But in terms of competing with Olympic athletes, you just don't see 35-year-olds unless you're that 41-year-old Ukrainian gymnast. I think she was from Ukraine, but don't write me down on that. 41 years old. That was her 7th game. So we're going to push that aside because that's once in 5 lifetimes that you'll see that. But I just think that Michael Phelps going from 31 to 35, I mean, something could happen on any given day. You know, when you're on that 23 to 31 road and you're 25, 26, you know, you could tweak your hamstring or something, but at the same time, you're 25, ice it, you're fine, you know, but you throw in 6, 7 more of just rigorous work trying to get back, especially after you come out of retirement form to get back into Olympic shape. I mean, it really takes a toll on your body. So I'm not anticipating him coming back for Tokyo in 2020, but what he has given us, not just America, but the entire world, is just a 16-year period of just admiration. And he will, in my mind, forever, I mean, unless something unforeseeable happens, forever be the greatest Olympic athlete that will ever live. I don't care how long the world exists. I think that title will always be with Michael Phelps.
Oh, no doubt. This is a record that will stand the test of time. And I mean, it could be another 2,000 years until this happens. And that's just showing how remarkable this truly is. I mean, it's beyond words, honestly.
And if you want to match him, not only do you have to compete in 5 games and dominate for all those 16 years, but you have to start when you're 15. Because it's not like you can start when you're 19 or 20 if you're Lily King and continue when you're 36. You know, that's just not going to happen. So we could talk about Michael Phelps for the rest of the games without going offline. We're not going to do that for our sake and for everybody's sake. Everyone right now is talking about Michael Phelps. It's hard not to. The greatest of all time. Josh and I'll speak for both of us. We don't want to hear a word about that. So, you know, we'll come back to the Olympics next time, cover that a little bit. We'll tie that in with Bloomington as well. But right now we're going to move on. We're going to talk about the MLB. Things have gotten not weird, but interesting since the All-Star break. The Cubs, for one, limped into the All-Star break, losing, I think, 15 of 21. Now they're on a 10-game win streak, and they are winning in every way possible. A couple of walk-off walks, a walk-off wild pitch, earning their walk-offs by getting a base hit or a sac fly or what have you, sac bunt. They're doing it all. The wild card race in both leagues is looking very interesting. You know, it could go any way. The Royals might not make the playoffs, the defending world champions. Josh, where do you want to start with this? There's so much to go about.
Well, I don't want to bring up that walk-off walk anymore because the Mariners embarrassed themselves on national television for the first time since 2004. But since then, the Mariners have been on a tear. They're 1 game out of the wild card right now. They've won 6 in a row. They swept the Tigers, and right now they're sitting looking at the standings right now. They are 1 game out of the American League wild card. Detroit's a half game out, and Boston right now has that second spot. They're they're 2.5 games back at Baltimore, who have the first spot. I mean, this wild card race is insane. And then you haven't even talked about the Yankees, who are only 3.5 games out, and they're hosting retirement tours right now. So there is just so much going on right now in baseball, and the American League race is fantastic. And I'm going to scroll down into the National League, and you have the Mets, who are at 500. They're only 3 games out. Pittsburgh's 2 games out. The Cardinals are a half game out, and Miami right now is the second spot. There's just so much going on right now. It's really hard to break this down, and the East is going to be an interesting race in the AL. The Central is, I would kind of say, decided, but I wouldn't quite say that because the Indians have faltered lately. In the West, the Mariners are 6.5 games back, still plenty of time against the Rangers to get things together. So there's a lot going on. This AL wildcard race, though, is really, really intriguing right now, though.
And you know this far better than I do, but do the Mariners not have a fairly manageable next couple weeks?
Oh, they went through a stretch in June and July where they played teams over 500 for about a month, and then they faltered a little bit. They got injuries right at that time. Now they go through a stretch where they play one team over 500 until the first week or the last week of August, I believe, and that's Texas, and that's the Yankees who they play in a couple weeks. So they enter a very manageable part of their schedule right now, and they're making a push towards the playoffs. And they were somewhat sellers at the deadline, trading Wade Miley away and just getting a couple minor pieces here and there. But this AL wildcard race is going to be interesting. There's so many teams in there that all are really good, and they all went through their ups and downs in the season. Right now, the Mariners are going up, and the Astros, who are another team that was up there, are going down right now. So lots going on right now.
Yeah, and that one series against the Yankees for the Mariners, the Yankees are barely above 500. So that's by no means an impossible series to win. That's, potential sweep. We could be talking anything there. So keep it. And they're, like you said, the Mariners are a game back from the wild card, and it's so dense there from Baltimore, who's got a hefty lead, 2.5 games over Boston, and they're a half a game ahead of Detroit for the wild card, all the way down to the Yankees, who are 3.5 out. And you can't really write off the Royals, even though they're 6.5 out. You can't write them off because they are the defending champs, but at the same time, they've really done nothing to impress me this year. Their runs allowed is nothing spectacular. They can't score very well. I think they've got the lowest run total in the American League, if I'm reading this correctly, which is not – if you can't score, you can't win. You don't need me to tell you that. And then the National League is obviously very tight too. It looks like the Dodgers are fine with, after that Kershaw news, they're playing all right. They hold a 4-game lead above Miami in that wild card race, and then it gets interesting. You got Miami, St. Louis. You already said this, but both races are tight, and it's not the flip of a coin, but it's the next thing in line. I mean, anything can happen, and as of right now, for all intents and purposes, it is mid-August. Pending something catastrophic, I have 2 teams that are essential locks to make the playoffs, and you really can't convince me that there are any other teams. If you want to say Cleveland, I'll say okay, but they've been struggling lately, like you said. If you want to say Texas, I'll say okay, but Seattle's got a manageable schedule, and they're playing well their last 10 games. They're 8-2. The only teams you could sell me on right now are the Nationals and the Cubs, and I'm not going to listen to any other argument because I just think that anything can happen in baseball.
Yeah, and there is so much time left. We're mid-August, so it's around 50 games left. You've seen seasons change in that time. There were teams that were 6.5 games out a couple years ago at this time, and they were in the playoffs come the end of September, start of October. There's so much time left, and I would agree with you that the Nats and the Cubs right now are the 2 locks for the playoff. The Mets in the East, I just don't think they have it right now. They're not playing well. Going through some turmoil, don't have that starting pitching that they had last year. And then the Cubs, they're back to being the best team in baseball. 10 in a row is incredible. Could have been even more if the Mariners didn't get to Chapman, but they did. And it's just they've turned it back on. So it's interesting because in the NL you kind of have it's a little bit more top heavy. Then you have those division leaders, and then you have those wild card teams. But in the AL, it's still a very fluid situation, especially in the AL East. That'll be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and you look at I just want to give just one quick number of just how good the Cubs are, and the Nationals for that matter. There are 2 teams in Major League Baseball with a run differential over 100, the Cubs and the Nationals. The Cubs are 40-something, I think, ahead of Washington in that aspect. Let me check this right now. Yeah, 189 for the Cubs, 136 for Washington. So 189. They are plus 189 in their run differential. One of 2 teams above 100, and they've almost doubled that in terms of their run differentials. And their top 3, I think they're 3rd in the MLB in runs allowed. I'm sorry, they're 3rd in the MLB in runs scored, and they're 1st in runs allowed. And they're pitching. Jake Arrieta is back. Kyle Hendricks is pitching phenomenally. I saw him pitch a complete game the other night, I think a week or 2 ago. He was incredible. I like what they're doing, and I think that I don't know if they're peaking too early, but they've certainly recovered since that all-star stumble. But again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, do not sleep on the Nationals. I still think they have a very complete lineup from top to bottom. I love from Revere to Harper to Daniel Murphy. I love what they have to offer. Do not sleep on Washington, not to mention their pitching.
Yeah, definitely. their pitching, but a name to watch out for on the Nationals. I want to name drop this guy, Trey Turner. He has come up. He's kind of been up and down this year, but I think he's finally solidified his spot in the Nationals lineup. Trey Turner has been fantastic. He's a speed element on that team. He's pretty good in the field, and he's been hitting pretty solid since he's kind of been an everyday player. So that's some guy to watch out for on the Nats, and they're a good team. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It'll be interesting to see, though, who gets matched up in that NL and who comes out of the wild card, because if the Dodgers end up playing any of those teams, I think they could beat any of those teams, especially if Kershaw's back by October. He can't come back for a couple more weeks since he's on the 60-day DL, but the Dodgers are a team that are trending up, and it's that National League is going to be very, very interesting because all four of those teams could potentially win the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite a crapshoot because I think right now there is a favorite, but behind the favorites, and the favorites have shown signs of weakness in the past, the not so distant past. There are teams ready to chomp at the bit. So I'm by no means saying that the Cubs are going to win the World Series, and by no means. I think that Washington could easily take them out in the playoffs wherever they meet. If they meet, these standings aren't set in stone, but if they were to meet, I would not be surprised by Washington. But Josh, last thing on this topic, I said Cubs and Nationals are my two, for all intents and purposes, locks to make the playoffs. Do you disagree with me with those two, or can you make an argument for someone else?
No, I don't think I can disagree. I kind of wish I could, just for argument's sake, but I just don't see let me look at the division standings. Yeah, the Cubs are up 13 games on the Cardinals. That's not going to change, even though they've been on a 10-game winning streak. That'll maybe come down to 10, maybe even 8 games, but I don't see the Cubs giving up that Central. The Nationals 7.5 games above Miami right now, and 10.5 above the Mets. I just don't see either of those teams really making a strong push to even rival the Nats up above the NL East. So I would have to agree that those two teams have to be locks right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really throw anybody else into the pot. But that does it for. Do you have anything else to add to the MLB portion?
I mean, there's still a lot of baseball left, and I mean we're saying these are locks, but injuries happen. Teams go on losing streaks, so still a lot of baseball to go. Don't want to lock in anybody quite yet, but next to a lock has to be those two teams.
Sorry, I accidentally muted myself there. We can't lock anybody quite yet, but you nailed it. Next to lock are those two teams. So that wraps up our second portion, and now it's time for Josh's Uninterrupted. Josh and mine's Uninterrupted, but I like to give him credit for it just because it's so good, and I can't take any credit for it because I didn't really contribute to it except for giving him the stamp of approval. So, Josh, you want to lead this off or you want me to take it?
I can take this one first. All right, so last night in the Olympics, it was a big night. Michael Phelps won his 22nd gold medal. Obviously, we talked about that. Absolutely incredible. But there was one medal that came after that was arguably more important to the Olympics than Michael Phelps winning his 22nd gold, and that was Simone Manuel, the first African American in swimming for the United States to win a gold medal. That is absolutely incredible, and what that does is that opens the door for so many other people of so many other races. I mean, we're in 2016, and an African American has not won a medal in swimming. I mean, that is just absolutely incredible. And I would have to say that this medal is more important than Michael Phelps' 22. Michael Phelps is the greatest Olympian ever. We talked about that. There's no denying that. But this medal just means so much more than Michael Phelps' 22. And the crazy thing about that was that Simone Manuel tied with the 16-year-old Canadian swimmer, sorry if I'm saying this wrong, Oleksiak. They tied, same time. They both got the gold medal. Obviously, the Canadian girl, and she's 16. That's incredible. But Simone Manuel, as the first African American to win a medal, is just fantastic. And the quote after that she gave Michelle Tafoya on NBC was fantastic. I just want to be an inspiration to others that you can do it. And she was tearing up. It was emotional. It was obviously a very big moment. And hats off to Simone, and hopefully this opens the door for many, many more African American swimmers coming down the road.
It was a fantastic night. That was a fantastic moment, and it was also a good night to be named Simone. Simone Biles on the gymnastics end is just turning heads and keeping them focused there. When she's on the TV, I can't turn away. However, this was a nice segue to my uninterrupted. The key word in that statement that I made was when she's on TV, I can't turn away. Here's what I have to say regarding NBC's coverage so far, which has been great. I think I am in love with Rowdy Gaines, who is the swimming play-by-play guy. If you can find a more enthusiastic man than Rowdy Gaines, I would love for you to introduce him to me, because I don't think there's a guy that exists that can bring as much passion to anything as Rowdy Gaines brings to the swimming races. He is phenomenal, the best play-by-play guy I've ever heard in the Olympics. Aside from that, I don't love what NBC is doing with their prime time. I have a problem with it, because with the women's gymnastics team all around, I got 2 notifications on my phone from ESPN and the New York Times saying who won, who came in second, all that jazz. And it's tough to stay off of Twitter for an entire day, entire afternoon to begin with. But when you put forth all of that, effort to stay off of Twitter, ESPN just comes in, the New York Times just comes in, they send you notification. And I get it, NBC's the competitor. I understand, dog eat dog world out there. We're talking big names. So you want to drop the ratings, keep them to yourself. I get it. I have a problem with that, but I get it. But I mean, what NBC is doing with tape delaying, I didn't even get to the point, tape delaying these gymnastics finals. They both of them, the individual and the team all around, I think occurred at like 2 or 3 Eastern is when they began. And NBC didn't show it last night until like 10:15. So everybody knows. I mean, I get it. You're worried about the ratings, and you want everyone to watch at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, whatever. But people aren't going to watch if people know what happens. And there's a very small percentage of the population out there in America that's going to want to watch something that they know what happens. For any casual sports fan, it's, oh, Simone Biles won the individual by 2 whole points. Not watching that, it's going to be ugly. It's the same thing. If you recorded the NBA Finals and you get a notification that Cleveland hypothetically took Game 7 120-90, you're not going to watch it. It's ugly. You're not going to watch it. So if I'm NBC, and obviously it's too late now, they're already going and they're finely tuned with what they want to do. But in the future, the main events, you should broadcast live. And I understand with the tape delay when it goes overseas to Tokyo and whatnot, it's harder, but take advantage of it being 1 time zone away from New York. Take advantage of that. Play it live. People are going to watch it. I guarantee it. All you got to do is advertise. So I just have a problem with them tape delaying these main events, because what they're trying to do and increase their rankings, they're actually doing the opposite. And it's not entirely their fault, but given what's happening and everybody's tweeting out what happens, it's impossible to not hear in 2016. There's Twitter, there's apps like ESPN, New York Times, there's everything. It's impossible to not hear unless you go completely off the grid. But I mean, I don't think that it's a smart idea, and I don't know the numbers, but if I had to guess, I would say their rankings have to be dropping because they're deciding to air this in prime time and not when it goes live.
Yeah, and if you think it's bad, imagine being on the West Coast where it doesn't start until basically prime time on the East Coast is over. So, I mean, I was watching on CBUT last night because that's the only thing that plays it live. And that was great, except for the guy that screwed it up during the 200 IM, which is fine. I mean, I feel bad for the guy, obviously. But there's something about watching sports live that is just, you can't replace being in the moment. And as a sports fan in this day and age, being on Twitter in the moment is big. Watching it at the same time as everybody else, that is very important. Like, if they were to tape delay this soccer match that just finished up, it wouldn't have the same. I mean, it's still obviously a terrible defeat for the United States, but it just wouldn't feel the same if you were watching it at 8 o'clock tonight. So, I mean, it is a little unfortunate that you have to go to other places to watch it, but they do give you the NBC app, and that's great, but it's just a little bit different than not watching it live.
And to piggyback off that before we go to the power rankings, if you want to increase your ratings, what if Simone Biles fell off the beam? What if Allie Raisman couldn't stick her vault and something happened and the United States lost and that news broke? Nobody would watch, because what people know about the gymnastics team is that they're dominant and they were going to win gold, and everybody wanted to see if they could do it. Obviously, they did it. We know. But if they didn't and people found out, nobody would watch. There'd be no reason to watch it. So, and again, why not play it live? It's just within this day and age, you have to factor in the fact that people are going to find out. And it's not going to be one or two people. It's not going to be 1,000 or 2,000 people. People are going to know. All it takes is one person, and it's over. So, obviously, I can't change anything to NBC, and the people that they have calling every match and game and whatever, every event, they've all been great, especially Rowdy Gaines. But outside of that, I have a problem with them tape delaying everything. It's kind of ruined a little bit of the excitement.
Yeah, I know, and there's no doubt about that. I mean, being in the moment is just it's big. I mean, you go to a sporting event to be in that moment. You watch it live on TV to be in that moment. But NBC has done this for years. They're probably not going to change it. But I do like what you had to say about being one time zone away. I mean, in the World Cup in 2018, it's all the way in Russia. That's a couple time zones away. And next Olympics are in Korea. The Winter Olympics are in Korea. That's like a whole day ahead, basically. And then Tokyo's another whole day ahead also. So, I mean, it's too bad they can't take advantage of it. But I wonder when it comes back to the U.S., potentially in 2024, what they're going to do with that. So there's still 8 years down the road. But it's just interesting to kind of shoot back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's move on to our what to watch for before we get to the power rankings. My bad on that. I mean, the Olympics are on right now. I have them on the TV in the other room. I had it on this morning, so it's tough to keep that off the screen. MLB's heating up. Cubs, Cardinals, NL Central. It doesn't have a lot of implications, but a 10-game win streak is always worth a minor storyline. So there's that. They're playing on Sunday Night Baseball in a couple nights. And I think Little League World Series is coming up pretty soon. So that's what I got there.
Yeah, I mean, Little League World Series, they're in their regional stage right now. So that's fun to keep an eye on. The NFL preseason's going on, except for the Hall of Fame game that got infamously canceled. But also this weekend, very exciting. The Premier League is back. Whole slate of games this weekend, and they're going to go on all the way until May. So very exciting. It starts up this weekend. And soccer never really goes away, but it's just kind of back again.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that no one hit on the Hall of Fame game for the uninterrupted. That would have been nice to kind of go back and forth about, but it's all yesterday's news.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and it was kind of weird how that kind of all came to be, but it's a preseason game. It's fake football, so I don't really need to watch it.
Absolutely, and I'm going to try and erase fake football from my mind after last night's Bears debacle. But I won't talk about that. We're going to go straight to the power rankings, which, speaking of the NFL, another natural, perfect segue. We're going to talk NFL power rankings. We haven't really talked much about the NFL on this show yet, and it's not ever going to be the core focus. But we'll certainly have a portion of almost every show dedicated to it alongside our IU-focused material. So, let's get going with it right away. Number 5, I have coming in. I love Pittsburgh. And with this whole Le'Veon Bell thing, who knows what's going to happen for sure? Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? To me, it doesn't really matter because once he's back, he is the best running back in the NFL. And that's saying if he serves this suspension. And D'Angelo Williams is no scrub. He's old. He's not going to put together a 16-game, historic season. That's no secret. But can he find the end zone 3 or 4 times in 4 weeks? That's enough to get the job done. They could go 3-1. I don't even have their schedule up. But if he finds the end zone 4 times, they'll go at least 3-1. Big Ben is Big Ben. Antonio Brown's Antonio Brown. They're still a great team all around. So with or without Le'Veon Bell, the Steelers are my number 5.
Yeah, that is really funny. You call the number 5 because they are my number 5 as well. It's just it's hard to tell with all these suspensions in there, kind of what's going to happen with these teams because and training camp's still fairly early. People could get injured, but I think the Steelers are built right now for a pretty significant playoff run, especially with Tom Brady being out for 4 games. they could potentially grab that number one seed if they play up to their potential. Antonio Brown, Marcus Wheaton, that receiving core is absolutely fantastic. Le'Veon Bell, when he comes back, he'll be fantastic. And got Big Ben, he can play through, I feel like, any injury. He did it last year, and they're a solid team right now. And they kind of went through a couple down years, but now they're definitely on the way back up. So they're my number 5 right now.
Yeah, and we'll see what they can do. And number 4, I have kind of a similar theme here. Excuse me, it's the Patriots. And, even if they go 2-2 without Brady, they've got to go on the road to Arizona. They play Buffalo. But even if they go 2-2, if those two are losses, Tom Brady's going to come back against Cleveland with that look in his eye. And then I think maybe the next week they play the Jets. So he's got Cleveland is when he comes back. And then after that, he's got New York, I'm pretty sure. If that is not going to be a fantasy, field day for those 2 weeks, I don't know what is. When Brady comes back, he's going to have that look in his eye. And when Tom Brady gets that look in his eye, it's kind of like when Michael Phelps got that look in his eye on Chad Leclerc. Whoever you are, if you're not named Tom Brady or if you're not a New England Patriot, you're in trouble. Get out of the way. So, they won't go 0-4. We've seen what Garoppolo can do. He's very, very serviceable. He's capable. Even if they go 2-2, God forbid they go 1-3, they will still make the playoffs. Their division is not that good. They'll still make the playoffs. They'll be fine. Patriots number 4.
Yeah, I can't argue with that, although I don't have another AFC team in my top 4. So the Steelers were the only team. I just think the NFC is just so top-heavy right now. But coming in at my number 4, I have the Carolina Panthers. I think they're still very, very good. They only lost really Josh Norman. That was the only big name. Couple retirements, but Josh Norman is really the only guy that was of a huge impact on that team that left following their NFC championship. They're my number 4. They're a very good team. They start off in Denver against a Denver team that no longer has Peyton Manning, so who knows what's going to go on there with the quarterback. And they're still a good team. I predict them to win the NFC South. That division's not very strong right now. The Bucs not very good. The Saints not very good. The Falcons potentially, but right now the Panthers are looking pretty solid heading into the season. So they are my number 4.
And there's almost nothing not to like about the Panthers after last season. So I cannot argue with that number 4. Number 3 for me, I have Arizona, and it's again hard to not love the way they played last year and what they accomplished, and I just think they're so solid all around, and they have so many pieces on the defensive end that just complement each other, so nicely, from their secondary to their linebackers to the defensive line. They've got, I just named every part of a defense, but at the same time, I'm not just saying that to say that they blend very well, and they're just a fierce core of defenders. And Larry Fitz, I swear this guy does not age at all. He had his career high in receptions last year with I think 109, which is just absurd, off the charts. And the guy still got it. I'm not going to go as far as to say he's the Tim Duncan of the NFL, but he's the next best thing. So Larry Fitz and that defense, I think they could be a top 5 team by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's funny because I also have them at my number 3. That NFC West is going to be a very good division this season, and it was last season, and it probably will be for a few more years, because the Seahawks and the Cardinals are both very, very good. Both could contend for a Super Bowl, but the Cardinals are my number 3 team. That defense is serious. That is a very good defense. It has the potential to be one of the best in the league, and I'm saying that as a Seahawks fan. They are a very, very good defense, and if they can stay healthy for an entire year, they could be looking at another NFC Championship run, because that defense is fierce. Carson Palmer, he's old, but he has so many weapons on offense. And you were talking about Larry Fitz. They got Floyd. They got John Brown. And they have a good running attack too. This team is built to win. There's a couple contracts that are up at the end of this season, so this is kind of the year to do it. They got to put it all together. But it's going to be very interesting to watch. But right now, they are my number 3. They're a solid team.
Not a lot of disagreements so far, but I can tell you we're going to disagree at some point in this top 5. I know it. But my number 2 right now is Denver. And you can say all you want about their quarterback battle, but watch what you say, because I'm a Northwestern fan and Trevor Siemian's going to win that job, believe. But Um, no matter what you say about their quarterback situation last year was still not great. And I get Peyton Manning didn't play every game, but you look at his numbers: 2,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions in 10 games. That's nothing to be impressed by. That's far, far below average as far as I'm concerned. Whatever you call average, that's below that. And it's not like they have to go and replace the Peyton Manning of 2013 with arguably the best defense in the league. They've got to go replace a below average quarterback. Peyton Manning, legacy-wise, is Peyton Manning, one of the greatest of all time. But last year, he was bad. No other way around it. Everybody knows it. He was bad, and everyone's just afraid to say it. They don't have to replace Tom Brady. They don't have to replace a 40-touchdown guy. They have to replace a 9-touchdown guy. It's not going to be that hard. It's not going to be easy, but it's not like they can't. It's not like people are talking. They're writing them out for the playoffs already. It's not like they're a lock to miss the playoffs. They've still got weapons. They've still got a great defense, and the quarterback does not need to be amazing. He just needs to be okay, and that they can have the same potential they did last year if whoever the quarterback is has potential to make plays down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, if quarterback wasn't fantastic this year, and they won that championship with their defense. You saw it in Super Bowl 50. It was their defense that won them that game. But this is a quarterback league, and they don't really have a strong kind of leader on that offense. I don't feel like in Peyton Manning. I mean, you had Peyton Manning. He was the captain. He was the leader of that team. That's kind of missing this year. But I guess we'll see, because they have a very good defense. Von Miller's there for a while now. We'll see what they can do. But my number 2, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. They're a very good team. Last year they almost pulled out a miracle in Arizona. Couldn't quite do it, but this team is still built to win. Jordy Nelson will be back. He was out last season with an ACL. Aaron Rodgers, obviously one of the best quarterbacks in football, if not the best quarterback in football right now. And they play at home at Lambeau Field. And when you're playing there at the end of December into the playoffs, that's a tough place to play. I do think they're going to win their division this year. Last year, I think that the injury bug bit them a little bit too much, and that's why the Vikings pulled out that division. But right now, I definitely see the Packers as a strong Super Bowl contender. I think they'll win the NFC North, and right now they're my number 2 team heading into the season.
And with their receiving core fully healthy, hopefully, from a fan of the game's perspective, because I am a Bears fan first and foremost, but hopefully their receivers will be healthy, because they are fun to watch. I can't deny that, and they'd be very dangerous if everybody's out there for most of, if not all, the season. But my number 1, and I hate the fact that these two are my number 1 and my number 2, because they played in the Super Bowl last year, but my number 1 is the Carolina Panthers. And yes, they lost Norman, and that's a huge loss. One of the best corners in the league, if not the best. Up for discussion, we won't discuss it. But, they still won 15 games last year, and they didn't have a receiver. They didn't have a receiver, and they're getting Kelvin Benjamin back. He's a deep threat. He's got height. He can jump. He's got speed. He's got great hands. Think about what that team could have been with him last year. I mean, their offense would have had – I don't even want to – I can't even think about what they would have done to complement that defense. And they've got a fire burning from last year's loss. They know that most of America is not rooting for them. Cam Newton, when he plays with a chip on his shoulder, his track record is almost flawless, and that one flaw was last year's Super Bowl when he ran into one of the greatest defenses ever to grace the Super Bowl in that Denver defense. So Cam Newton with a chip on his shoulder, that defense with a fire burning in their belly, and Kelvin Benjamin back with an actual receiver on that roster, you can't convince me that they're not the number 1 team going into the season.
We will see, I guess, who is the number 1 team, because my number 1 team plays your number 1 team in Seattle. I think it's in November at some time, but my number 1 team has to be the Seahawks. I'm trying to be unbiased about this, but they really just complete the case for me. Their offense, Russell Wilson, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. I think he's put himself, I'm not going to get into grading quarterbacks, but he's up there. He's got to be. There's no doubt about that. He's been in the playoffs every year. And then you go along with that defense. And last year you had the holdout of Cam Chancellor. This year you had the question mark with Michael Bennett, who's one of the best defensive linemen in football. He's at camp, and this team is ready to go. Cam Chancellor was saying that this team is potentially having a better offseason than they did when they won the Super Bowl. And that just gets me going a little bit because that was a special season. This season has the potential. They do have at Patriots in the division, and they play the Panthers, but that's at home too. And when teams come up to CenturyLink, it's always a tough game. I know last season they didn't really defend their home turf all that well. This is a new year. They're all ready to go. Russell Wilson, brand new contract. Thomas Rawls, you better watch out for him. Jimmy Graham is back healthy. This team is ready to roll, and it'll be interesting to them go up against the Cardinals in the NFC West, and that NFC is going to be fantastic. I had 4 of my 5 top teams from the NFC. It's going to be a battle all season long, and it starts week 1, and it'll go all the way throughout the season. So Seahawks are my number 1.
I can't really disagree with you wholeheartedly there. Obviously, I still think the Panthers are number 1. You made a great case for them. And obviously, the filling the whole Marshawn Lynch hole is going to be one thing, but I love CJ Prosise, Thomas Rawls. He's got experience. And what Prosise did at Notre Dame last year, I think, kind of went unnoticed by most people. So good 2 running backs right there. It's going to take some time for Prosise to kind of evolve into that solid, starter that can give you a good night every given night. But I think the Seahawks they very well could be in the mix come late in the season. So, thankfully we kind of veered our different ways towards the end of that because it was getting pretty bland with our 5-4-3 being very similar. 2 of the 3 are the exact same in the same spot. But we veered off and it was okay. So, I mean, this was a great episode. It was much needed. We went a little longer than planned, but that's good because we missed you guys for about a month. So we had to leave it all out there. We did. I thought we got some great conversation. Don't ever let anyone tell you Michael Phelps is not the greatest Olympian of all time. I swear that stat will never cease to amaze me. But Olympics are still on. MLB race is heating up. Stay tuned. We'll be back to you live from Bloomington at some point next week or the following week. Moving week's always pretty hectic. But we're going to get back to you live from Bloomington for the first time ever on the Hoosier Life. I cannot wait.
Yeah, definitely. Excited to get back there. Sophomore year, all of a sudden, that first year flew by. We'll probably get involved more with the assembly call. I know they have a couple, 2 new interns coming in, so we'll see how we shake out, but we still have this show for you here. And I'm excited to get back to Bloomington. Got a lot going on. You got football starting up soon. The soccer team is ranked 15th to start the season. And basketball is only a few months away. So a lot going on, a lot to be happy about. And Bloomington should be fun next week.
Could be Sports Town USA in terms of the Big Ten. From soccer starting it out right away. Football hopefully can make some noise, win 7 games, and then basketball is basketball, and we know what to expect there. Big Ten championship or bust, given the past 4 years. So we can't wait to get back to you guys live from Bloomington. We'll figure out when that's going to happen and all that jazz. But we're going to figure some stuff out. We're going to get back to you. We're going to start our Bloomington special that's going to run through May with a couple of breaks here and there. But we can't wait. It's going to be great. And we'd love to get you guys as involved as possible. So once we get a feel for how it goes down in Bloomington and what we're going to talk about and all that stuff, we'd love to get you guys on. We'd love to get some tweets read. So keep tweeting at us. Follow us at the Hoosier Life. I forgot to put my little tag right there, but it's at the Hoosier Life. Josh is at Josh Eastern. 2 very easy things to remember if you've ever seen the show. So make sure to follow both of them. I am at M_Dugan44. Give us a follow. Tweet at us. We'll get you on the show if we can. And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.